everyone. Welcome to the Arm Coach Podcast, episode 75. Here's the thing. I always ask you to send me your ideas, your questions, the topics you most want me to cover on the podcast. Today, we're going to dive into one that's actually been the most requested topic by far, and that's rebellion. When it comes to toning your arms or following any kind of consistent plan, whether it's your workouts, your nutrition, or simply showing up for yourself, rebellion sounds like nobody can tell me what to do. Nobody can make me lift weights 3 times a week. Nobody can tell me to eat more protein or pause and check my hunger first. Not even me. It's that knee-jerk pushback that any rule, any structure, any voice, especially when that voice is your own. Let me tell you, I know this pattern so well. For the longest time, I was walking around with this attitude of, hey, I've earned the right to eat what I want, to skip a workout if I feel like it. You can't take that from me. I'm an adult. I've paid my dues. Honestly, being able to loosen my grip on that story, being able to let go of that stubborn little rebellion was absolutely critical for me. Not just for how my arms look now, but for how I actually feel in my body. Here's the thing, it's also true. You do have the right to skip your workout. You do have the right to eat whatever's in the pantry, to bail on your plan for the day. You have complete free will. Telling yourself you don't is actually a lie, and it's one that backfires. In fact, I did a whole podcast on this very idea, telling yourself you can't. Because the second you start saying, I can't have that, or I can't skip my workout, you're way more likely to stir up all these heavy emotions, feeling deprived, embarrassed, resentful, even powerless. Let me tell you, those emotions are never the fuel that's going to drive lasting change for your body. If you haven't listened to that episode, go back and check it out. It's episode 17 called Breaking Free from I Can't. But today, I want to dig even deeper into this rebellion issue because here's the truth. Even when you fully acknowledge your free will, you might still feel like there are two parts of you at war. One part of your brain is crystal clear. This isn't working. I don't like how I feel in my arms. I don't like pulling at my sleeves to hide them. I hate that I'm not following through. This just doesn't feel like the woman I want to be. Here's the catch. There's also this other part of your brain, the part that's like, screw it. Actually, screw everyone. I can do what I want. I'm a grown woman. If I want to skip my workout or have that second helping, even though I'm full, I'm going to do it. Back off. Sound familiar? That's the real tug of war so many of you describe. One side of you is longing for change, wanting toned arms, wanting to feel confident in sleeveless tops, wanting to be proud of how you show up for yourself. And the other side, it's basically digging in its heels, arms crossed, saying, don't tell me what to do. So what do you do when it feels like there are these two parts of your brain locked in a standoff? The answer might surprise you because you can't start shifting those rebellious thoughts, the ones that keep saying, nope, not doing it, unless you first understand why they're there. You have to uncover where this rebellion even comes from. That's exactly what we're going to explore today. Why you push back against your own best intentions, why your brain throws a little tantrum anytime you try to create a new routine or follow through on your plan. Because once you understand it, then you can actually start to shift it. Here's the thing, rebellion itself isn't always bad. It just means resisting rules or challenging authority. Totally normal. In fact, it's a natural part of being human. Think about it. When you were a kid, your parents were in charge of everything. They decided what you ate, where you went, when you went to bed, how long you could stay out, even what clothes you wore. You didn't get, a say in much. So rebellion starts young, long before we're teenagers, rolling our eyes and slamming doors. Even little kids start testing the waters, pushing back, saying, hey, I'm not a baby. I can decide some things for myself. Rebellion is actually how we start to develop independence. It's how we learn we're not just extensions of someone else's control. And that carries right into adulthood. It's why a part of you still bristles whenever you or anyone else tries to lay down rules, even if the rules are meant to help you create strong, sculpted arms. Here's what happens. It starts off as a totally normal, healthy part of becoming your own person. Rebellion is how you first learn to stand on your own 2 feet. But over time, that same instinct to rebel can become a way to experiment with your identity, to figure out who you are and where you fit in the world. When you push back on rules or even your own goals, part of what you're doing is exploring your autonomy, testing your edges, trying on who you want to be. Listen, rebellion itself isn't bad. It actually makes complete sense. It's part of how you grew up, how you shaped your independence, how you discovered who you are. It's literally hardwired into how we develop as humans. But here's where it starts to trip us up. Rebellion doesn't always serve you, especially when you're decades out of high school, when you're a grown woman. And that rebellion now looks like skipping your workout because nobody's going to boss you around, eating whatever just to prove you can, or ignoring your own plans, even though you know the consequences. That's the flavor of rebellion we're talking about today. The kind that sabotages your efforts to build strong, toned arms and keep promises to yourself. Let's start by really understanding where these rebellious thoughts come from. To do that, I want you to think back on all the messages you got growing up, not about drinking, but about food, your body, exercise, or how you should look. Maybe you heard, finish everything on your plate, or girls shouldn't have muscles, or don't be vain, just be grateful. Or even little comments like, is that what you're going to wear? Should you be showing your arms? We all got different doses of these messages and we all responded differently. But for a lot of women, it planted seeds of both anticipation and defiance. Anticipation of finally being in charge of your own body, your own choices, and a simmering rebellion like, just wait until I'm old enough to decide for myself. Those messages shaped you more than you might realize. And they've quietly fueled a push pull relationship with following through on the things you say you want now, like creating sculpted arms or simply sticking to your commitment to move your body. Think about this. For years and years, you were told no, no, no about all kinds of things tied to your body. Maybe it was, no, you're too young to worry about your body. You're just a kid, right? You're too young to be dieting. Or maybe it was, no, don't lift heavy. That's for boys. Then suddenly you're an adult. You're officially in charge. You can eat whatever you want, whenever you want. You can decide if you want to exercise or not. Nobody's forcing you into a PE class or telling you to finish your broccoli. Side note, your brain doesn't actually finish fully developing until around 25. But legally and culturally, you're considered an adult way before that. And so there's this huge switch that flips. After years of messaging that your body choices weren't yours to make, suddenly it's all on you. Imagine after all that conditioning, someone tries to tell you now at 40, 50, 60 that you should be lifting weights, that you shouldn't snack after dinner, or that you should stick to your plan. Your brain's like, excuse me? I'm a grown woman. I'll do what I want. There's this deep seated part of you that almost wants to rebel on principle. And that's the tricky part. Just because you're older doesn't mean all those old beliefs about freedom or what it means to be in charge of your body suddenly disappear. If anything, the second you introduce new rules for yourself, like lifting 3 days a week or pausing before you eat, you can accidentally wake up that old part of your brain that thinks, this is so unfair. This is stupid. I'm just going to do what I want. No one can stop me. All of those early experiences, all of those messages about who's allowed to make choices for your body, they don't magically fade. They're tucked away and they often pop right back up the moment you try to change your habits. Here's the thing, this is just one source of those rebellious thoughts, the old messages you got about your body and who was in charge. And it is an important piece because so many women tell me that when they try to follow a plan or commit to lifting consistently, it somehow feels silly, even childish, almost like I'm too grown up for this. Shouldn't I just be able to eat what I want, skip my workouts if I want, live freely? It's because we were all fed these ideas that being an adult meant you were completely in charge, no more rules. So when we start placing structure on ourselves, like planning workouts or paying attention to how full we are, it can feel like we're taking a step backward. But beyond these old messages, there's another huge reason you might be feeling rebellious right now. And I really want you to pay attention to it. It's all the other areas in your life outside of your workouts, outside of toning your arms, where you already feel buried under rules and obligations. If you're a people pleaser or a perfectionist, this is massive for you because listen, people pleasers and perfectionists are basically walking around with this running script of, I have to. I have to look put together. I have to be a good mom, a good partner, a good friend. I have to keep the house spotless, make everyone happy, never drop the ball. I have to look a certain way, thin enough, firm enough, toned enough, so no one thinks I've let myself go. It's this endless mental checklist of how you're supposed to show up in the world. Here's what I want you to see. The word have might seem harmless, but it's sneaky. Every time you tell yourself, I have to work out, I have to eat better, I have to tone my arms, you're basically telling your brain you have no choice. And that's a lie. Because the truth is, you are never actually forced. Not with your workouts, not with your meals, not even with the little daily things that keep life running. You don't have to lift weights. You don't have to prep your protein. You don't even have to pay your bills, take out the trash, call your mom, or go to work. Now, will there be consequences if you don't? Absolutely. Maybe you'd rather have money in your account than late fees, a fresh smelling kitchen over a stinky one, a close relationship with your family instead of distance. But that's different. That's want to, not have to. And there's a huge difference in how that feels. When you constantly tell yourself that you have to do something, you completely strip away your sense of free will. There's no room for it. It feels like you're being shoved around by your own life. But when you flip it, when you start saying, I want to do this, or I'm choosing to do this, Suddenly you're back in the driver's seat. You're the one with the power. I'll tell you, before they start working with me inside Arms by Christine, most of my clients don't even realize how many times a day they're feeding themselves this script of, I have to. It's not until we start unraveling it together that they see so much of what they think they're forced to do, they actually want to do. There's a real desire there. They just buried it under layers of obligation. But imagine how heavy that gets. Think about all the negative emotion you're generating in your mind and body over and over all day when every single thing you tell yourself is, I have to do this. It's a recipe for frustration, overwhelm, even quiet resentment. Inside the think, feel, act cycle, it sets you up to self sabotage. So, how does this connect to why you sometimes push back against your workouts or your plans to eat in a way that serves your goals? How does it explain the rebellion that pops up when it's time to lift weights or pay attention to your fullness cues? Start by imagining this. You've spent your whole day telling yourself you have to get through your work meetings, you have to keep the house spotless, you have to show up for every family need, look a certain way, never let anyone down, not make a single mistake. What kind of emotions do you think that creates? A whole cocktail of powerlessness and resentment. You're convincing yourself you're being forced through your own life. And that inevitably builds this simmering urge to rebel. It's no wonder that by the time the evening hits or the weekend rolls around, your brain is craving some relief. You want to escape that endless have to energy. For some of you, it shows up in skipping your workouts, ignoring your plan, grabbing snacks when you're not hungry, because it feels like the one place you finally get to cut loose. It's the one area that's just for you, where nobody gets to lay down the rules. I see this all the time with perfectionists and people pleasers, especially the women over 50 that I work with in Arms by Christine. You spend so much of your day trying to live up to everyone else's expectations that your brain craves a space with zero rules. I'll tell you, this was a huge realization for me in my own life because for so long I was walking around completely wrapped up in being a perfectionist. Honestly, there was a time I wore it like a badge of honor. I actually thought it was an asset that I was so obsessed with getting everything right all day long. From the second I looked in the mirror in the morning to how I showed up at work, how I handled my responsibilities, paid my bills, stayed on top of every little thing, I was constantly running this tape in my head. Be perfect, be perfect, be perfect. And back then, food and workouts weren't where I gave myself freedom. They were just more things to control. Skipping them or eating off plan felt like rebellion. It was the one little corner of my life where I could say, no rules apply. I can do whatever I want. No one gets to tell me otherwise, not even me. For someone who spent every single day piling on the pressure to be flawless, that was the only space I allowed myself to cut loose. It was my me time, even if it didn't actually serve me. And honestly, who wants to give up the one place in their life where they feel totally untethered, especially when you spend all day suffocating under perfectionism? And that's why in Arms by Christine, I talk so much about shifting your language and your mindset. It's not about saying, I can't skip my workout or I can't eat that. That language puts you right back into feeling trapped and powerless. Instead, we start practicing. I'm choosing to lift today. I'm choosing to stop when I'm satisfied. But more importantly than just flipping your words is understanding why your brain is craving rebellion in the first place. What are you telling yourself all day long? Because if your entire day is run by thoughts like, I have to be perfect, I have to make sure everyone's happy, I can't let anyone down, then of course, by evening, your mind is desperate for relief. That's when you're most likely to skip your plan, skip your lift, overeat, because it feels like the only time you're not under a microscope. The truth is, when you find yourself rebelling as an adult, it's almost always because you feel forced, like life is happening to you, but you're not actually stuck. There's a giant difference between I have to do my workout and I want to move my body today. I'm choosing to get stronger. One feels drenched in obligation. The other is all about owning your power. Here's what I want you to do today. It's a really simple exercise that will help you start uncovering exactly what you're telling yourself all day long and how it might be fueling your urge to rebel against your own plans to tone your arms or follow through on whatever you said you'd do. Just grab a sheet of paper and at the top, write this. What am I telling myself I have to do? Remember, have to sounds so innocent. But every time you tell yourself you have to do something, you're basically telling your brain you're being forced, that you don't have a choice. And that's never going to create an emotion that feels good, empowered, or inspired. Fill up that page. Write down everything your mind says you have to do, big or small. I have to clean the house. I have to cook dinner. I have to get to work, pay the bills, help the kids. I have to look a certain way, not disappoint anyone, be on top of everything. I have to exercise. I have to eat better. I have to stick to my plan so my arms don't get flabby. Get it all out, every single thing. Then go back through your list for each line. Ask yourself, am I truly forced to do this? Do I actually not have a choice? Who's making me? Most of the time, you'll see that you're not forced at all. You have free will. Maybe you want to do these things because you like the results, like a clean kitchen, money in the bank, or strong sculpted arms. Maybe you choose them because you don't love the consequences of not doing them. Either way, notice that difference. When you see that you're not being forced, that you're choosing, cross it off your have to list. Reclaim your power one line at a time. Because here's the truth, so many women I coach inside Arms by Christine have spent years telling themselves they have to keep everything perfect, keep everyone happy, never let a single ball drop. And after a whole day of thinking that way, guess what? It's no surprise your brain looks for an escape. For some of you, that looks like blowing off your workouts. For others, it's searching for snacks when you're not hungry or skipping your plan entirely because it feels like the one place you finally get to say, no rules, no expectations, just me. But even in that moment, when you're saying, you're not the boss of me, you're actually talking to yourself. And ironically, you're often creating a bunch of negative consequences that only make you feel worse, frustrated with your progress, disappointed when you look at your arms in the mirror, stuck in the same cycle. If blowing off your plan feels like the only place you allow yourself to be imperfect or to relax, of course you're going to guard it fiercely. Of course, it feels like there are two parts of your brain at war. But here's the real solution. It's not about forcing yourself harder. It's about understanding how your perfectionism and people pleasing and your constant have to thoughts are actually laying the perfect groundwork for rebellion. Do this exercise today and let me know how it goes. Shoot me an email at christine@christinerecord.com, or you can just message me on Instagram. Tell me what you discovered. And if you're ready to take this work even deeper to learn how to truly choose your plan so you can finally follow through, build trust with yourself, and get the strong tone arms you want, come join us inside Arms by Christine. I promise it's going to change everything. All right, my friend, I'll see you next week.